Welcome to episode 103 of the Omnigamers Club podcast, the podcast for games on all platforms, including marble runs. I am Daniel Winter.
And I'm Mark Yosa. What made you think of marble runs?
My kid is currently obsessed with watching like marble races on YouTube. But I do remember Ross, a streamer. Well, he does a lot of things in the board game industry. Used to stream, and I believe between games he would like do these virtual marble runs, and yet you bet. Although each viewer would be assigned one of the marbles in the race. And that was always good fun.
Yeah, marble runs. Haven't thought of that since the height of the pandemic. But yeah, a big deal for a while.
They're hardcore. There's a lot of details have gone into some of the ones I've found on YouTube. So yeah, big industry there.
Nice. All right, we got a lot of games to get through. This is
We do.
I guess, the last of our top 100 games
The final
series.
countdown. Let's make like
Yeah.
Job.
And we're doing games 1 through 10 or 10 to 1 of the video game variety, each of us, right?
Yes, correct.
All right, let's roll into it. Did you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll kick us off this week.
Nice.
So, top 10 video games. Okay, number 10 for me. So last video game episode, I talked about Tales from the Borderlands. And I mentioned I think that it is probably the best written of the Borderlands games, but I'd be remiss if I didn't admit that I think Borderlands 2 specifically, I think is the better game. At least my favorite, in terms of a more, full package experience. You've got all the shooting, obviously, so many guns, and the story is still fairly solid there as well. Mark, I know you're a fan of this series as well. I don't know where Borderlands 2 fits into the package for you.
I have to admit, Borderlands is on my list.
I suspected as much. Okay.
Straight off the bat. I think Borderlands 2 is the best of the mainline Borderlands series. I think some games like, even Tiny Tina's is like probably mechanically superior. But
Yeah.
I feel like Borderlands 2 had some sort of like verve to it. Like the writing was actually great. You said that Tales from was great. Like the story, the character development, nobody expected that out of the Borderlands series, especially following number 1, which is pretty lackluster in terms of story
I think so, yeah.
and character. They just really made those boring first 4 characters really characters in Borderlands 2 and took us to interesting places. Also invented a new villain who was also quite interesting as well. So I agree, Borderlands 2 is my favorite of that series.
It's hard to go back to 2 in a sense because FPS games these days, we have the expectations of mobility largely. Like most of them have some kind of slide ability and mantling, like jumping up onto ledges. It's hard to go back to 2 with not having those, especially like Borderlands 3 has all of that. But I think for its time, Borderlands 2 was pretty fantastic. The writing, there is a lot of zaniness, like, you've got your Claptrap, who is going to be sandpaper to a lot of people. You've got your Tiny Tina, who I was sympathetic to. I've heard some criticisms in terms of racial profiling that I perhaps there is some money to that, but I think between all of that, there is still a lot of heart to the characters, especially as you said, the playable characters, both in 2 and those brought forward from 1. Are very grounded, at least in comparison for that series, and they have a lot of heart that level out all the other zaniness going on around them in some really ways. Like there are some deaths and heartbreak going on there. Really loved Borderlands 2, and like I said, the shooting is great too. Obviously, you've got a huge number of guns, and they all shoot in very different ways, so you can mix and match and experiment with what feels best. And yeah, it was always fun.
Yeah, you talked about mobility in modern shooters, and actually, I feel like Borderlands 2 at least did something mechanically for the Borderlands series. They introduced a subtle change, which was that you didn't experience fall damage. So the level design for Borderlands 2 was much bigger. I feel like they got a huge budget boost after the first one, and the levels were, actually quite, daring for the time, adventurous, bigger scale. Some of them had multiple areas, regions. They had so you would like jump off these massive cliffs and fall like quite a bit. And
I get quite a bit of vertigo from that too. You're falling for quite a while.
yeah, and I would, players would develop like these
Mm,
sort of speed runs, right? They would like, I
mm.
really want to get over there fast and do this shortcut or whatever, and that was really cool. They had a mini game within Borderlands 2 that was the hunting for the vault symbols.
Oh yes, yeah.
I don't know if you partook of that, but I did quite a bit. I
A
got
lot of
kind
like
of
micro
obsessed.
challenges
Yep.
spread around every map, both those and other like hidden collectibles and little micro challenges and things to tick off that you could really lean into and get some bonus points to. I mean, it was very incremental, I will say. Like it was
Yeah.
like your vault level where you could like increase your damage by 1% across all of your characters. And I mean, it was fun to see number go up. But beyond that, it wasn't particularly meaningful. But
Yeah, the badass challenges, I really like that. It felt like
mm,
there was like some progression, even when you would like level out a character or something like that, or a high level a character. It felt like you were always getting some sort of granular upgrade, which is nice for that sense of progression. Other great things like the cooperative challenge levels.
yeah,
Like there were
mm.
some, I guess they were like battle arenas, sort
Arenas,
of,
yeah. Mm.
which were some of them were quite deviously difficult. And they did, of course, the excellent thing. Maybe other looter games do it as well. But the more people are playing, the more intense the enemies become, the more frenetic the combat is. So it was fantastic for multiplayer too.
Unfortunately, had a lot of issues with connecting to the multiplayer servers. It was back in the day where like port forwarding was necessary for a lot of these games, and I could never figure out. So unfortunately, it was mostly solo for me. But I hear it was a lot of fun co-op.
I played a ton solo. I played a
Mm,
ton solo. I played a ton co-op as well. So you can play it in multiple different ways. Yeah, I think that game is a real like one of the greats for me.
mm.
Absolutely.
And you've got the Tiny Tina expansion, I think it was. But there was later on a standalone, but the expansion as part of that was really good too.
Yeah, that's right. Those games had really ambitious expansion packs, large new areas, new story elements, new character classes, actually.
Mm.
I feel like the pre-sequel had new character classes as well. I think maybe like they'd actually had more character classes than any
Yeah.
of the other games, I feel like. And 3 really kind of lost it. Like they had kind of boring characters. They didn't have any story
The writing was a
expansions.
bit try hard, I think, in 3.
Yeah, they really lost their way on that one. So, here's hoping that number 4 brings it back.
Yeah.
But I feel like number 2 was the last time when it was really like hitting on all cylinders.
There's some fun riders associated with 4, so I'm hoping they can recapture some of that magic.
Very
Okay, so
cool.
that was on your list.
It was. I'll tell
Well,
you which number
oh,
in a
okay,
bit.
very excellent. Okay,
Okay, so I guess I'll do my number 10.
go ahead.
We went a bit long there, but we were talking about 2 games, 2 slots on our list.
We'll make up for it later.
Okay, number 10 for me. All right, this is a bit of an older game. This is from 1987 when I
Hmm.
played it. And I first played it on NES, although it was on computers first. It's a LucasArts graphical adventure game called Maniac Mansion. Have you played this one?
No, the Lucas Arts are a little bit before my time. Even when I was gaming, I only had like a Mac PC, so I was mostly console based for a while. And I guess you said it was on NES, but I never saw
Yeah,
that. I
it was.
guess.
I have a cartridge of it
Huh.
sitting in a box over here. But absolutely was on NES, and you had to move the cursor with the thumbstick, which you can imagine just
Uh-huh.
how tedious that was. But I'm pretty sure Maniac Mansion was probably on Macs as well. They were actually really a powerhouse platform for adventure games back in the day. But Maniac Mansion was really cool because it wasn't based on any license, right? It wasn't Indiana Jones. It was an original story setting, although very much based on kind of like B monster movies, sort of horror schlocky movies and tropes from teen horror movies from the 1950s, really cheap ones, or it came from outer space type things. A lot of movie tropes. You can tell that the people at LucasArts really loved their cinema because obviously Lucasfilm. What can I say about this game? It was a Scum game. So Scum is this the graphical engine by which they basically had items which you would collect in an inventory, and then you would have verbs. So you would say like put hamster in microwave, And then, so you choose from your inventory, you would say put, and then you point at the microwave, and then your character would walk over to the microwave and put the hamster in. And you would have, in this game, really interestingly, you can control 3 characters at a time. So at the beginning of the game, there was a roster of something like 8 teens, and they are all manner of stereotypes, like kind of like rocker girl, surfer boy, computer dweeb, jock, this sort of thing. That, and you only got to choose 3 of them at the time, and depending on which ones you chose, they had overlapping or differing abilities. So only certain characters can activate certain rooms. You and I were just talking about blueprints just before we started talking about these games, and it was very much that sort of feel. You're exploring this mansion, and there's mystery everywhere. You didn't know what these odd things were, how they operated, and the other layer that this game from 1987 added was that you had to draw upon this distinct cast of characters to utilize those items. Furthermore, you couldn't control those 3 characters simultaneously. So I believe this is how they do it in GTA 5, where like the characters are doing their own thing, and then you take some of them to some place, and then they sort of stay there while you can swap at any time to another character.
Almost like sort of Lost Vikings, I guess.
Yeah, and you had to do this to solve some puzzles. You had to set things up. This character has to be in the kitchen. This character has to be in the secret laboratory, and this character has to be in the basement dungeon, or something like that, to pull off these sequences at the same time. It was quite ingenious and really ahead of its time in how they set things up, and nowhere at all as linear as even other quite venerable adventure games from Lucasfilm, like Monkey Island, Secret of Monkey Island, fantastic as it is, seems very like straightforward when you compare it to a multi-layered game like Maniac Mansion. So this blew me away when I started playing it, and it actually made me kind of fall in love with the adventure game genre in general.
I've tried going back to some of those classics. Like, is Grim Fandango LucasArts as well?
I think it is, yeah.
And like Full Throttle. And I've tried getting into them a few times, but I found their logic to be very esoteric and sort of trial and error. It's a little hard to go back with sort of modern sensibilities.
Yeah, those games were not very forgiving. That every puzzle only had really one way to solve it, and it was sort of, you had to beat yourself over the head or consult some cheats, some
really
guides.
had to be thinking in the designer's shoes. The logic didn't necessarily flow logically.
Yeah, there's a famous example about like you had a game where the game took place between New York and Los Angeles, and if you didn't pick up the pencil in the office in New York, you couldn't write down a note in the apartment in Los Angeles, because of course in Los Angeles there aren't any pencils. Yeah, this game is really venerable. I think it was a bit ahead of its time, so I would encourage people to check it out. It might even be available on freeware at this point, because nobody's reissued a game of it in so long. I think Day of the Tentacle is the official sequel, and I think you could even play Day of the Tentacle on a lot of consoles these days.
I feel like there was a re-release of that relatively recently from who's the Psychonauts developer?
Double Fine.
Yeah, I feel like they had something to do with that.
Yeah, Double Fine sort of carried on the legacy of those graphical adventure games.
Yes,
and eventually it would become more cinematic versions of storytelling games, like the Telltale Adventures.
Yes.
It's like Tales from the Borderlands. There's another connection there. Anyways, Maniac Mansion, really cool. Go check it out. I think it's still a gem and well worth some review.
Very cool. Okay, my number 9. So last episode we talked a bit about some platformers. We both had a Mario game on the list. But my favorite 2D platformer, I have to say, is Rayman Legends. So this came out in 2013. It was the second from the sort of revival series from Ubisoft. There was Rayman Origins, and then Legends came out a few years later. So all 2D animation with really vivid, crisp sort of, it looks like flat sort of 2D characters, but lots of like multi-layer backgrounds. really like in characters and things moving on every level, like very multi-planar level design, really cool. Just running through the levels was always a lot of fun. They flowed in a really fun way. Specifically, I think one of my favorite things is these very mobile levels. There was like you were chasing these chests, and there's some later ones where it's literally set to music, and it's these levels are all set so fine tuned that you just press run and jump at the right time and you'll be exactly where you need to be, and it's just this incredible flow state to these games. Most of the normal levels are a little slower and you can take your time and explore and collectibles and whatnot, but just a lot of fun, just classic platforming. And like I said, I would pay an inappropriate amount for a game that was just those musical levels, because they're all like fun remixes. I mean, the music across the board, even in the regular levels, is this really like whimsical pop fantasy music. That's a lot of fun. But the covers that they do specifically are great as well. There is a co-op mode similar to like some of the 2D Mario games that I've never really played with. But I just recently, in the last couple of months, replayed through the whole thing again with my daughter. She was watching. She was not quite up for playing with me yet, but she had a lot of fun with that as well. And I mean, the thing with Legends is all of the levels from Rayman Origins are also included. They're completely remade in the new engine, so you've basically got two games in one. So an incredible steal there.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I can't say I played any of Rayman except like Raving Rabbids on the Wii,
Oh
which I
yeah.
know is a totally different thing. There's something about those Rayman games, just Ubisoft in general, it's just a little too French for my taste. But I will admit that some of that art looks beautiful, looks great in motion.
Mm.
And I guess you could say that this is a more of a me thing, is I kind of got out of 2D side scrollers since, last video game episode we talked about Super Mario World. That was the last time I was really into 2D side scroller platformer for its own sake. Absolutely, I love me a Metroidvania. That's a 2D platforming genre I love, or even a 2D side scrolling RPG like Dragon's Crown or something like that. Absolutely,
Mm,
give that to
mm.
me. Or even a side-scrolling puzzler like the Trine games are pretty interesting
Yeah.
too. But just platforming on its own sake, it's just something about me. I feel disconnected to that genre, and maybe I have to go back to my roots at some point.
Yeah, well, if you want to have a nice throwback with modern sensibilities, I can highly recommend that. I mean, it's over 10 years old now, obviously, but yeah, it still holds up.
Very cool. All right, let me talk about my number 9. It is I had a really hard time choosing this. I because kind of trying to balance between multiple games in the same genre, and I ended up choosing the first game in the genre, if you can call it that, and that is 2019's Slay the Spire.
Ooh.
So I say the first game in the genre, but obviously you and I are tabletop gamers, so we are familiar with deck building games far before Slay the Spire really kind of blew open the doors of a new video game genre. We were used to playing deck building games with cards like Dominion and Thunderstone and things like that. Or the, what was it? Eminent Domain that I mentioned last
Mm,
episode.
mm.
But Slay the Spire was its own thing. I was really tempted to add like newer games like Balatro to this list, but I didn't because I think Balatro is great, but Slay the Spire sort of was kind of just perfect out of the gate. I know that they did add some things, like they added some new character classes, and sort of had a weird relationship with this game. I played it, I beat it with all of the different, the 4 official character classes, and then I played the daily challenges for a bit, and I just kind of got tired of it, and I walked away. And then I saw that my neighbor and TTRPG friend Paul, the GM, was playing it just before our D&D session, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm on like tier 15 or something like that," and I was like, "What is that?" So I didn't realize that this tier advancement thing existed until like embarrassingly late. And now I have gone back to the game. Now I have played with the tier advancement levels, and basically the long and the short of it is that after you beat the game with like tier 1, You can try it out at tier 2 and then tier 3 and so on and so on. And it gets progressively more and more difficult to beat. So there is more game to be had there. So yeah, this is the game that just truly keeps giving.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this game. We obviously covered the board game, the
Right?
physical version, only a few months ago. I mean, I do really love this. My relationship to roguelites have changed quite a bit, though, in that the I can see the excellent design in this game, and I can enjoy playing through and hitting credits, beating the main boss, and then I just lose all interest. Like I've beaten the game, I have no interest in actually like optimizing, and I'm not one of you Ascension sickos. I don't have the patience for like digging that hole. But I can appreciate its design, and it's obviously inspired like a whole genre, including Balatro and so many other games.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not saying that it is the perfect game. Obviously, it wouldn't be number 9 on my list. It would be much higher. But what I'm saying is that it had elegance of its own
Mm.
at the time that it came out. Like you said, it did spawn a whole new genre, and that continued. And I did walk away for it a while. I did walk away from the game for a while, and then I came back to it and I found that it still has something to give. So I feel like as a foundational game that really cemented a whole entire video game subgenre, I think it definitely has a place, and I'm excited to see what they do with number 2. I'm not terribly
Right.
optimistic, but Slay the Spire 2 is coming out. Hopefully they do some interesting things. I think even if they just introduce some new character classes, that could go a long way.
I feel like it
So
could be a Spelunky 2 situation where people have got the one they want, they don't need any more of that, right? Like
possibly, but I'm not going to speculate on a game that
yeah.
I haven't played yet.
Mm.
But I'm eager to play it because, yeah, Slay the Spire is great.
So yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I think at this point I prefer the board game where I can just play the occasional session, really have a really intimate, in-depth experience, and then just be done with it for a while.
Yeah, I would argue you could do that with a computer game too. All right, but that's my number 9.
Okay, my number 8. So, last video game episode, I mentioned one of very few multiplayer games on my list was Team Fortress 2. And a large reason why I haven't played that game for a long time is because of Overwatch, which I think I didn't really see this discussion, but I think it's largely inspired by TF2 more than any other game. Very similar sense of obviously it's team based, more objective based than just kill count basically, and role based obviously too. You've got your tank, your healer, your support, and damage dealing classes, but it sort of codified that structure a lot more polish, a lot more just framework around it, like a lot of like actual matchmaking for one thing, which came very late to TF2, and a lot of like built-in game modes, and it was that Blizzard level of polish. I mean, Blizzard is known for like taking genres and then refining them to a fine art, basically. And similar to TF2, Overwatch has had so much character. Obviously, I mean they've got. I mean, I don't know how many characters there are now. I haven't played in a few years, but there's like over 30, I think, at this point, that have a whole like history and various cosmetics and storylines and relationships with like characters going between them. So yeah, have you ever played Overwatch, Mark?
No, I have not. Like multiplayer shooter games are not really my thing.
Hmm.
Although I said that multiplayer shooters I did enjoy in the sort of the LAN party context
Mm, mm.
from Halo 2 days. But no, Overwatch doesn't do it for me. But I'm not saying it's bad. It's just that, I'm not personally attracted to the competitive shooters.
Yeah, I mean, large part that I do love these both those games is because of that team structure. You don't it's not just based on reflex. You can you can just play a support role and hang in the back lines, be supporting the team in other ways. And I won't lie in that a large part of why this game is so high for me is because I had housemates and we were all playing it regularly together. And that like games that you play friends with going to be a lot more fun, right? But
Yeah,
there was some great like I just played mystery heroes a lot of the time where you just spawn in as one of a random hero. But even then, a lot of fun. Just very for casual play, it was a much more accessible experience.
very cool. Okay, I'm going to move on to my game. My number 8 is from 1987, yet again,
Hmm.
a banner year for video games for young Marky. This game came out on the Master System. Yes, I was a Sega kid back in the day, and this was a real gem in that roster. It's Wonderboy 2.
Oh.
Wonderboy in Monsterland. So this game is actually came out for a bunch of different systems. I didn't realize it came out in the arcade, Master System, Famicom, Commodore 64, PC Engine, Amstrad, ZX Spectrum, Amiga, Atari, so many different
And this
platforms.
is in the era where coming out on a different like each platform could play radically different too,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely. Although the code was probably simpler, so yeah, it
Hmm.
wouldn't take too much work to port it. But yeah, this game was really interesting. Wonder Boy 1 is quite different. I'm not sure if you played that either, but that's the game where you essentially you are like Mario, except you have like a little tomahawk axe and you throw it at people, and then eventually you can jump on a skateboard and jump over things. And that plays nothing like Wonder Boy and Monsterland does. This game is a platforming RPG, is what it is.
Hmm.
When you defeat a monster, you collect coins, and you go to a shop and turn those coins for armor and weapon upgrades, and you use those weapon upgrades to deal more damage and take more hits. So this is a game that was truly doing something like quite innovative. It was doing the action RPG thing, really before action RPGs, and doing something that was far beyond the turn-based RPGs that Japan had to offer at the time on other systems like the Famicom. So this game was really innovative, and this game, like Mario games, had a lot of secrets. Like there would be certain spots that if you jump at certain times, you can unlock more coins, which are obviously very important for upgrading your
Mm, mm,
equipment. There would be secret doors, sort of mirror worlds. This game really had it all. And it did require some platforming, but it really wasn't like Twitch based
mm.
platforming. Most of it was just about timing, about knowing where you need to go and timing the short sword attack so you get it right, or avoiding the fireball at the right time. Really the game was far beyond just the platforming. It was the deciding where to go. It was like open world, if you can call it that. You can go left, you can go right, you can go to the different regions, and it wasn't like a Mario map where you would move from section to section. You could just go back to the same town and then just heal up and then venture out again. So it really did feel more like an RPG, and it was probably the RPG that like formed young Marky before I really knew what that genre was all about. So I have Wonder Boy in Monster World. What was it, Monster World or Monster Land? Monster Land to thank for that. And this series would come out with more ambitious, more intense games that follow this mold thereafter.
Yeah, I think it was Wonder Boy 3 that had a remaster like
Yeah,
in the last decade or so. They completely redid the art, basically.
right. Yeah, I think it was one of those great remake factories like Way Forward or something like that that did that
Mm,
one. Yeah, I think Wonder Boy and Dragon's Crown.
that sounds about right. Yeah, I did play through that. I don't have strong memories of it. I mean, it wasn't a particularly deep game by today's standards,
Right.
but like I mean, the new artwork was beautiful, I will say, and yeah, it was very open ended. I could approach the game at your own pace and how you explore and tackle those obstacles.
Yeah, I think that the Wonder Boy series, what makes it really stand out to me is what it was doing at the time.
Hmm.
So, like I said, most JRPGs were turn-based, top-down affairs, and this one made it real time. In that game that you mentioned, Dragon's Crown, you have really innovative systems where you would take on the powers of creatures that you inhabit. That was something that not your average role-playing game tries. So and you had stats, you had inventory. The gold you collected mattered because you spent it not just to collect these ethereal points, what were really points for. This game, funny enough, does have high scores and things like that, but it's a role playing game. So what do you need the high scores for? You had inventory, you had healing spells, really had the whole works, and I can't believe they were able to pull that off in real time on a ancient system like the Sega Master System. But I think that that was my number one Master System game for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously nostalgia is playing into this a little bit, but I am also trying to take into account like how games were when they came out. I mean,
Yeah,
we were kids, obviously, but it is interesting. Like Borderlands 2, for example, not the best game by today's standards, but for its time was really strong. So it's hard to judge. You know, obviously there's no objectivity to this, but there's a retro game I've been playing that maybe I'll talk about in a future not regular episode that had like this it does not hold up today, but it's fascinating things for its time. So always interesting from a game design perspective.
yeah. I have to go back to this game, and then maybe I will on the retro game systems that we have. But
Mm.
I don't think I ever ended. I don't think I ever beat this game back in the day. So I'll have to do it properly and give you the proper review. But yeah, you're right. At the time, this game was just super innovative and really strongly placed in my memory.
Not to get on a tangent, but Euphoria was one on the NES, which was similarly sort of open-ended, early sort of Metroid style game, 2D platformer that was key, not on my list, but was a key part of my memory. So something in the similar oeuvre, perhaps you should check out.
Very cool. All right.
So my number 7. So I mean, I was literally just talking about how Blizzard takes games and it takes whole genres and polishes them. Last episode, I talked about Diablo. I mean, I have to get the elephant in the room out of the way. Basically, my number 7 is World of Warcraft. Very distinct memories of being 14, having played Warcraft 3. I think was number 15 on my list. I want to say no, number 11, and like just reading all of the magazine articles coming out at World of Warcraft, and just the scale of this thing blew my mind. And it wasn't until I think I was like several years later when I actually played it, but just the fantasy of what this game could be and this huge breadth of it was carried a lot of inspiration. I mean, have you ever played World of Warcraft before it's out of the way?
Yeah, I have played about 2 weeks. I know I played less than 2 weeks of World of Warcraft
Mhm.
because my friend, I think actually my business partner at the time, I was in college, by the way, when World of Warcraft first came out. So that says something about our comparative ages. But my business partner was playing World of Warcraft, and he gave me like the friend pass. You know,
Oh, of
they did
course.
that
I think you
early
get like a
on.
zebra mount or something for that.
Maybe it was basically like a two week free
Yeah, yeah,
trial.
yeah.
So I'm like, of course, yeah, I like video games. I'll try it out. And I tried it, and I promptly finished that and never looked at it again because I knew it would become a problem.
Oh, it was absolutely a problem. Yeah, and
And
I came into this. I think I came into it fairly late in the first expansion, the Burning Crusade, and played it on and off. Never hardcore enough that it probably did get in the way of university studies. But I was mostly playing it solo for one thing, and even then, like playing a massively multiplayer game solo seems besides the point. But just being in a living world with just seeing other people around was incredibly just it was just fascinating to be in that world from a sociological perspective, right? And seeing all the different types of behavior and communities, and just being present within a community, even if you're not actively participating in it. As someone with a lot of social anxiety, I found that incredibly satisfying. And you get to see number go up, a dozen times a minute. And I mean, they've added so much over the years to keep you engaged with that game, and lots of little mills to grind in that game with there's archaeology and Pokemon pet battles and like homesteads that you can grind out mini quests on. There's so much in that game, but like I can't really justify or defend like the addictiveness of it, but it did do it for me for on and off through some rough times over the years. And it's a world I love to explore. This huge world, just flying around, checking out all the nooks and crannies, and like that world has a history of its own now. Got the various releases. I mean, what is it? 20, just over 20 years old, and there's been like big changes that have literally changed the world completely. But and also just the cultural history around it is just it's a behemoth in the gaming world.
yeah, we talked about how Slay the Spire was really the first one to innovate in that genre, and World of Warcraft, while not being the first MMO,
Mm.
I think EverQuest has that honor, or at least the largest
RuneQuest, I
commercial
think,
one.
preceded it.
Yeah, there were like Ultima Online and things
Mm.
like that too, but World of Warcraft really blew the doors open and popularized the MMO genre, kind of beyond the hardcore gamer into popular culture. Like there was the freaking South Park episode about it. Things beyond that, it would eventually come out with the Warcraft movie.
Mm.
Whatever you want to say about that, I haven't watched it,
It's a
but
movie.
yeah, it was really influential. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Okay, let's move on. I'm going to talk about my game, my number 7. This is a similarly older game to what I was talking about before. 1994 was when this came out. It's a Super Nintendo game that was based on a Super Famicom game. This is Earthbound.
Oh.
I was going to say Earthbound 2, but no, this is Mother 2, aka Earthbound in North America.
Hmm.
And this game was sort of like late in my Super Nintendo playing time. At this point, I was probably getting interested in other things, kind of putting console games behind me for a little while. I was into high school at this point, but this game was just so unique that you could not ignore it. You know, big splashes in Nintendo Power magazine at that time when that print magazine was available, and this game was also doing something that most JRPGs didn't do. It was set in the quote unquote modern day. It was set on Earth. I guess you could call it Earth. It takes place in Eagle Land, which is, I think, supposed to be an equivalent to America. But there's things like bicycles and telephones and ATMs rather than dragons and mounted cavalry and knights and things like that. So that, for one, was really refreshing, and the art was really cool. There was this like psychedelic background effects on the Super Nintendo that were really kind of mind blowing, and the character design was super cool. Like just bizarre characters, like just like random crows with sunglasses would attack you, and clowns and things like that, and space aliens, and you just really never knew what to expect. And the writing, this game has jokes for days. So funny, so quirky, just like really appealed to me, someone who was never into trad fantasy, because like I wasn't raised on that sort of stuff. This kind of like seemed really quirky and cool and funny, so I couldn't resist. Have you played any Earthbound?
No, I mean, I played a lot of SNES games, but just through all of my, renting games at Blockbuster over the years, I never really picked up any of the RPGs for that system. So Chrono Trigger, Secrets of Mana, none of those caught my attention for some reason. I'd love to go back at some point. I've heard great things.
Yeah, Super Nintendo was a real RPG powerhouse.
Mm.
Definitely, especially in its later years, it was popular for so long and it ran a while. And Earthbound, thankfully, I never thought. Well, first of all, the cartridge was really expensive at the day because it
Mm.
had memory. Was memory storage capacity on it. That made cartridges expensive. We're talking about $110 Canadian games now that where the Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out soon. But Earthbound was probably $100 cartridge back in the day in 1994, and good luck finding it on the collector's market. But I never thought there would be another chance to play it again officially. But there is a way you can play this on the Super Nintendo Classic
Oh, interesting.
hardware system, and I'm pretty sure you can also play it on the Nintendo Switch
On,
Online, Nintendo Switch Classics subscription service
oh, I should check that out.
on the Switch. So absolutely do check it out. This game's a blast, and if you play it on the retro handheld, you can turn on fast forward to make some of the grinding a little bit more palatable. Even so, I think there's an auto battle mode in this that makes
Mm.
it really
Huh.
smooth. And just play it for the jokes, play it for the quirky puzzles, wild characters, just really bizarre like items. Like what does a stop sign do? I don't know. I don't know what the stop sign does. Just hilarious things. You can carry this teddy bear around, and the teddy bear like takes punches for you. It's just super quirky. What else can I say? Absolute charming game.
Excellent. Okay, my number 6. So I have a pretty fraught history with horror games. I've only really got into that genre in the last 10 years. And something one sort of subgenre I've always bounced off of is the one where you've got this sort of unstoppable force relentlessly chasing you down. The ones that are designed, feel like they're designed to be streamed and reacted to, like your Amnesia, your Slender Man, I guess. But for me, the exception that proves the rule is Alien Isolation. It's obviously based on the Alien franchise, the movie franchise, set in between Alien and Aliens, with Ripley's daughter Amanda sort of tracking down the black box from the Nostromo, and you're on this sprawling sort of space station, a little similar to Prey, which I discussed last episode, where you really get a sense of a place. You're on one contained space station with, like, it's a locked box, no one can get in or out, ostensibly. So you're really exploring and getting to know this space, a little more linear, but with all of the atmosphere of the alien world. Like, it's an incredible amount of detail. I remember when I think this is my first experience when you download a game on the PlayStation, and it would say, game download completed. You can play the game now, and you boot it up, and it's like, oh, it turns out it's only downloaded like 10%. You can boot it up, but you can't actually play through it completely yet. So I was contained to the tutorial area, and for the 2 hours that we're waiting for the rest of the game to download, we were just exploring this, checking out all the cereal boxes and all of the medical equipment, and just incredible attention to detail in the level design in this game. And you're going to be engaging with it a lot because so much of it is contextual in all the devices you're interacting with. Like, there's no UI so much as, like, you literally pull out a device to look at to see the radar. You have to go up to a map in the world, like the information booth, to see the map in game. There's the save points are these literal clunky devices you have to go in and clock into, and so very immersive. Obviously, just forcing you to engage with all that. Very atmospheric with the alien who's stalking you nonstop, and it does get a little old. It's a very long game by the end. You've kind of figured it out to an extent, and maybe that's partly why I was able to handle it. But I just love the atmosphere to that game, and all the analog devices that you're engaging with in some really fascinating ways. The working Joes, the sort of androids that you're interacting with in that game, are terrifying, and I know there's taken some inspiration in like Alien Romulus, and sort of other things in that franchise have sort of followed on from there.
Yeah, I own Alien Isolation. Sadly, I haven't played it, despite the fact that I really enjoy the Alien movies. But I'm pleased to hear that the game seems to kind of really respect the design and production qualities of the early films, and kind of that verisimilitude really immerses you in that world. That sounds super cool, and I like the Alien. I think what was it, Dark Descent game?
Yes, yeah.
That's more of an RTS, but you don't really feel like you're there, right? You feel more like the
Very zoomed out.
commander. You feel like the commander over the headset talking to the team that's on the ground. You don't feel like you're the person that's crawled inside the locker and is
It's more
trying to control their
aliens
breathing.
than alien. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool though. That sounds awesome. All right, I'm going to talk about my next game, my number 6, I think it is. And it's funny that you mentioned the horror genre, because this is a horror game too. Or it's a horror themed game anyway. It's from 1992. This game came out on, I think, on PS2, 360, if I'm not mistaken. This is Resident Evil 2.
Wondering which Resident Evil this would be.
Yeah, it's Resident Evil 2. This game really knocked my socks off. I did play number 1, obviously. Number 1 is kind of hilarious as a kind of a campy game. That I don't know if that camp was intentional. Obviously, horror movies can be really campy too, but number 1 was just so kind of like janky in how it was designed. Number 2 really bumped things up in production quality and scope. First of all, you could play this game with 2 different protagonists. You can play as Leon or Claire. And I believe you can play those adventures in either order, if I'm not mistaken, because the characters would overlap at certain points throughout the game. But for large parts of it, they would be playing their own areas. So if you wanted to really see all the game that had to offer, you had to play through the 2 stories. And when I played it through the first time, it was great. Oh, this is really such a great sort of action movie intensity that culminates. Like there's these memorable set pieces, these really slimy side characters. There's very fantastic Ada Wong. There's creatures under the water, let's just say, and so fantastic. But once you play through the second campaign, you really grow to appreciate the writers and the scenario planners mapping out tightly every even puzzle. It's like, well, isn't it awesome that this character showed up just at the right time to press the button for the character over there, to open the door for this character over here? It seems really contrived when you just play one half of the story, but when you play both, it just seems like it dovetails perfectly. So as far as a cinematic uh, meld of great gameplay, great design, production quality, and great execution, I think Resident Evil 2 is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's also got that relentless, unstoppable force coming for you. X going to give it to you. Mr. X, is that his name? I
Yeah,
think.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I guess I kind of forget that that was an aspect of Resident Evil 2 because I guess it was really prominent in 3, right? I think
Mm,
Nemesis was
right.
the big hulky guy that would really be unrelenting.
I've only played the remake of 2, to be clear. I'm not sure how it was in the original. I assume that's similar.
I think it is similar. I've
Mm,
played all of Resident Evil 2 first time around, and then I played half of the remake, and the remake is excellent. I think there's pretty much no reason to play the earlier version at this point.
mm,
But yeah, it's I think that's also the best Resident Evil in my opinion. I haven't played the Resident Evil 4 remake or much of Resident Evil 4 original, to be
mm.
honest, but I like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean that series has always towed the line between the sort of the serious like horror zombie fiction and the very campy action schlock, right? And two toes the line pretty well, at least for the first half. I think like from going by the remake, I think 2 is an excellent first half of a game, and then it sort of goes off the rail. I really like exploring that one key area. You sort of
Yes.
looping it around that PlayStation and the sort of museum area, like almost Metroidvania style.
Yeah, and that was a great quality of Resident Evil 1 itself. Really, the mansion in Resident Evil 1 is one of the main characters, and I feel like the police station slash museum in 2 is equally the same case. Yeah, I do feel like the other stuff is sort of extraneous, but they were quite ambitious, I felt, for expanding the scope. And then I feel like the later entries in the early part of the series kind of flew off the handle.
Jumps
They
the
kind of
shark a little bit, or the sewer alligator, as it were.
Yeah, they went a little bit too far into the action movie aspect rather than
Mm.
into the intimate horror movie quality. So that's unfortunate. Although it seems like they sort of came back on track with Resident Evil 7 and 8.
Excellent. Yeah, I've played through most of those now, and they're all fun roller coaster rides to various extents.
Very cool.
Okay, halfway there. My number 5 is, I'm going to get straight to it, Portal 2. So I have distinct memories of having Steam open, seeing the countdown of when it's going to unlock. I think it was pre-installed, booted it up the moment that it unlocked, playing through the whole thing in one sitting, like all 6 to 8 hours of it, and haven't played that game again. At least not in full. But like, what an experience! I have been meaning to go back for years now, but I mean, it realized the promise of the first Portal game, which feels like, I mean, it was a standalone game that was great, but Portal 2 makes it feel like a tech demo. And just the scope of it, and this huge adventure, like through the bowels of this huge sprawling complex, and the way, like, that Valve technique of just having the game be one long experience, no loading, no sort of cutscenes, no transitions. It's just you start from A, you go to B, and you're going to see the whole tunnel along the way, right? Obviously, I mean, most of the game is the writing makes the game. It's fantastic performances in, I think, Wheatley and Cave Johnson, the sort of two companion characters that you're going to have talking to you the whole way, and they're fantastically written, and this is a great synthesis of the story and the puzzles. So like experiencing both simultaneously that carries you forward. This just has an excellent momentum, which you both physically and story wise. Have you played Portal 2, Mark?
Believe it or not, I haven't played Portal 2, and I only played Portal 1 fairly recently. Like, I think I finished it within the last 3 years. So it's just something I never got around to. I played Half-Life 2, and sort of the other games, the other Valve Source Engine games are sort of extraneous in my opinion. But Portal 1 was really fantastic. And I know that Portal 2 has a great reputation, especially for co-op play.
Yes, yeah, I've only played that through once, but I wouldn't mind revisiting that sometime if you're up for it.
Maybe we'll have to give it a co-op run.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds great. I'm really in the sort of puzzly mood now that I've been playing Blueprints recently. Which, spoiler alert, Blueprints will not be on my list. Just more for recency bias. I don't know where to place it in the mix. And other games that I just haven't gotten around to playing won't be on the list either, like Baldur's Gate 3. Haven't played that, so that's not going to show up in my next few selections either. All right. My number 5. I think that this will probably be another overlap between us two.
Interesting.
This is from 2002. I played it originally on the Xbox Orig. It's called Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind.
Oh, interesting.
I was really not sure where I would place this. I even considered putting Skyrim on. I didn't. I ended up putting up Morrowind because I think I did spend more quality time on Morrowind. When you show up on that dock for the first time and are kind of just dumped unceremoniously into this new alien land, and it does really feel alien. Like the majority of the people that live in Morrowind are the what are they called? The Dunmer, the
Dark elves.
Dark elves. Yeah. And then there's these bizarro creatures like
giant bugs, like very sort of Nausicaa inspired,
right.
Giant bugs. Yeah,
and the massive fungi that make the architecture. The architecture is very strange and it feels unearthly. And I think that's what really drew me to it. Is like, yeah, baby, this is like bizarre, non-trad
it's truly
stuff.
Fantasy, right? And rather than that, trad Euro fantasy.
It really takes you somewhere. It transports you somewhere. And despite the fact that Morrowind, like the Elder Scrolls series, is pretty like straight and narrow, like D&D clone, Morrowind feels like the most unique, its own place, its own flavor. So many interesting things you can do in that game. So many interesting ways you could break that game. Like, let's just talk about the levitation spells. The levitation spells are just ridiculous. You can sort of sequence break so much stuff.
Make sure you have a way to fall after levitating, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Practice safe levitating.
They were doing so many ambitious things with that game, and I can't imagine how slow the load times must have been back in the day.
On Xbox, especially.
Exactly, on that ancient hardware that made it work. I mean, the Oblivion remake just happened. Just came out. And I have fond memories of that game too. I don't hate it as much as most people, but Morrowind was just doing wildly innovative things with definitely with 3D computer console RPGs at the time, because like who else was doing it well before them? I don't know. Not many. You were either BioWare or nothing.
Well, especially on console, because I wasn't playing many of these games, because most of them are on the PC, like your Deus Ex, all those 3D games, and all the RPGs at least. And this being on the console was an awakening experience for me, for sure. I mean, it's from that era where they didn't care about hand holding. They didn't care if you got lost or if you felt weak. Like you're going to walk out of that starting town, you're going to find a mud crab, and it's going to kick your ass. And you're going to swing at it, and nothing's going to happen. And people get turned off that game because it's basically a D&D dice roll every time you swing at a crab. as to whether you're going to hit or not.
Yeah, and yeah, there is a mainline quest, but everything in that world
Mm.
is there to distract you.
Mm.
Everything, every few steps is a new thing to discover, a new diversion to take. And that's what I want is, a fantastic world. No one holding your hand, just telling you make your own legend, right? It
There's
really
not
feels like,
just a series of mini map icons to check off, right? You have to explore the world yourself. And the journal in that game got a lot of flack for its I mean, you basically you had a journal of all your quests, but you had to like scroll through it. Like, oh, someone gave me this quest like 10 hours ago. You got to scroll back through your quest through your journal to find that note. But the fact that all the quests were like told, they were basically giving you directions. There was no objective. It was like, okay, go north out of Caldera, look for a tree by a big rock, and then head west for a bit, and you'll see a river. Follow the river north, and you'll find another rock. And like, it's really, you had to go and explore and experience the world, not just follow the glowing line, right? And like, in sense of exploration, like that game does it so well.
yeah, not much more to say about that. Is like that's you. Yeah, it feels like real adventure, which you can't say about a lot of modern computer games.
Mm.
Let's just say that. Probably newer, not that many newer RPGs on my list, anyways. But yeah, spoiler alert: there will be one more RPG further in my list.
Interesting. Okay. So that was your number
5.
five. Okay, my number four. Well, speaking of crossovers, last episode you spoke about Halo 2. And I was very tempted to just put the Master Chief Collection on my list and just capture the whole Halo bundle in one go. But look, if I have to be honest with myself, I'm going to say Halo OG Combat Evolved,
Oh, cool.
the first game from 2001. And I think 3 is better in a lot of ways, but 1 was such an awakening experience for me for FPSs broadly and storytelling in games. And like I think I mentioned previously that I was terrified of FPSs. I couldn't play Doom without like God mode on, or Turok, I guess was the other main one I was playing back in the day. But when I bought my OG Xbox, it was the first console I'd bought with my own money. And my cousin and I deciding, well, what game are we going to get? Should we get like Project Gotham Racing? And he convinced me to get Halo partly because it had co-op mode, which that sounds neat, right? My cousin practically lived at my house for like a month. I'd come home from work and he's sitting there with my dad, the two of them playing co-op Halo, and then we'd tag team in. Okay, my turn to play through the same level for the 10th time. Yeah, it had amazing so much replayability in that game compared to some other FPSs, both in like it forces you to make choices in what loadout, what guns you use, in how you all the vehicles and weapons, and finding alternate routes through levels, and so much to explore. And like the AI, I think for its time was pretty incredible. The responsiveness to the enemies and how they'd react and flank you and yell, like their call outs. I never played much of the sort of competitive matchmaking which you talked about, but the co-op mode was really key for me. And like I never could have gotten through that game if it wasn't for that. Like there's halfway through the game, it changes in tone in a pretty big way that I would have been terrified
Oh,
of.
right. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. There's a whole new faction comes in, but then you've got enemies, like multiple factions of enemies fighting each other, and you're teeing the AI against each other in some fun ways. So yeah, for its time, was incredibly innovative.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now that I think about it, seeing those scenarios where you would see, well, even not just other factions, like you would see other UNSC fighters fight
Yeah, the
the
NPCs,
Covenant
yeah, and
over
trying to keep them
there.
alive.
Yeah, they would be fighting over there in the distance, and things
Mm,
would be happening without them sort of being like presented to you. You felt like you were inhabiting a world, not that you were the main actor in a first person movie or something like
mm.
that, where the actors were jumping out at the right time. No, it felt really alive for that reason. And I 100% agree that game was really innovative. I don't know if I shared this on the podcast before, but I worked the Xbox OG launch party in Vancouver at Virgin
That's right. Yes.
Megastore when there was a Virgin Megastore here, and I got gifted a copy of Halo, so of course I just had to. I already I already had ordered the Xbox system, so I absolutely was very happy to play that. It was a seminal game, and it is still replayable. I played it with my oldest just recently in the Master Chief Collection within the last couple of years. And the first couple of levels, and it's surprisingly playable. Like the AI is still rudimentary, but not bad. The vistas are really impressive.
Oh, incredible
The
scope and atmosphere. Like just you see the rings branching off in the
right,
distance and just feels it's just quiet moments where you're just wandering through the rocky landscapes and it's quiet and just feels this atmosphere of heaviness of the setting is really given time to breathe.
yeah. The real thing that makes this game feel old is is not really anything about the production quality or the gameplay. It's just these kind of compactness of the maps. You do a
Mm,
lot of backtracking in that early game, and in fact, they joke it's like the mission is go in and then come right back out exactly the same way, and that's just a limitation of the probably the memory of that system
mm.
that it had at the time. But it did impressive things, and obviously it kicked off a whole series.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, go for that Master Chief collection because you can play. They've redid the artwork. Sorry, they redid the graphics for that first game, and it's fascinating to like you can click the button to see the old game and the new games. Like this is how it looked. This is like this is exactly how it was back in the day, right? Like, oh no, was way worse.
Oh yeah, my kid was really blown away by that when I showed them. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another seminal game. All right, I'm going to talk about my number 4, and this is yeah, we're into the epic games at this point. This game is from 1992, or sorry, 98. This will be
Hmm.
my only N64 game on the list because
Mark,
there
are we going
weren't.
to have another crossover at number 3?
Maybe you're right. I said number 4, so if it's not your number 3, it's not a crossover. It's the only game worth playing on the N64, and I stand by it. It is Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
My number 3.
Okay, well, let's talk about it because obviously we hold it in high regard. It's my only Zelda game on the series as well,
Hmm.
on this list as well. And it's because I feel like, unlike some other games, unlike Mario, this is just my personal opinion, I
Hmm.
think that Zelda made a better transition into 3D.
Hmm.
Ocarina of Time is the first 3D Zelda, I believe. It is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yes.
they just really knocked it out of the park. It felt like a Zelda game. The puzzles were innovative. The world felt big, but not too big. Just like the clip clopping intro with Epona riding over the
Hmm.
hills into the sunset. Um, the use of even the controller layout just seems really natural. And I love the traditional Zelda um, dungeon design.
Hmm.
There's something
Hmm.
about those puzzle dungeons that you felt epic when you finished them. You felt like you've been through the ringer, and you really had a substantial experience. And I know that the what was it, the mythic beasts or whatever from Breath of the Wild tried to emulate that, but just the sheer scope of them couldn't compare. I don't think they were even trying to.
And they were very open
Um,
ended too. Oh, you can solve this in a whole bunch of different ways. It didn't have that sort of tight designed, like design intentionality behind the dungeons.
right, and you could sequence break a little bit in the Zelda games, even in the earlier ones. But typically, you're right. It's a lot tighter. It's a lot more enclosed. You're sort of supposed to play the dungeon with the equipment you have going into it. And just the philosophy of the later Zelda games is totally different. I still feel like this feels like a first great 3D Zelda, but it kept up its traditional roots and really did great um, did a great job at carrying forward that design ethos of those really self-contained areas, like the water dungeon, or like the what a Goron area. It's first to establish some of those standards. Just really innovative and just one for the ages. Yeah, It's a fantastic
It,
execution.
it's the quintessential Zelda structure and sort of framework. And curiously, that they've ever since then they've really subverted that in some interesting ways. But if you just want that classic adventure, go through the dungeons, explore the overworld. This is the only one that I mean, obviously, there's the 2D games that preceded this, but this, like, bringing this into the 3D, having that sort of grand adventure and going through that frame, like, there's a lot to be said about that framework. Even if people have been trying to escape it ever since with Breath of the Wild, even Majora's Mask that followed this and subverted that structure. But like, I always want to go back to just that classic Zelda dungeon format. Basically, the the music is another big factor for me. In that, I mean, a lot of other Zelda games have had music, but the way it's incorporated into it, into the story, into the puzzles, music was key in so many ways. And like, and some of those songs are real bangers, even on the, the old MIDI formats.
Oh yeah,
I mentioned Koji Kondo last episode, and like, he's an incredible composer.
Kakariko Village, right? Am I right?
Mm.
The misty forest tutorial section,
Oh, Lost Woods.
the Lost
Yeah.
Woods, where the sound plays a part of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can all hear it, right? We can all hear it in our head to this day. Yeah, truly epic. Sound effects were great too. I know we all hate Navi or whatever, but just like so influential. Some of the cool creatures as well, even like the what was it? The Skulltulas. The Skulltulas always gave me like the shivers, even
There
though
was some.
they were so predictable, just like the
Mhm.
evil, gross design to them, and just the way that they interacted differently when they flipped over is like quite cool.
There was some real horror to that game. I don't remember what they were called, but the weird zombie things in the graveyard that would scream and freeze you, and the whole Shadow Temple. It's a scary game. Like, I have vivid memories of the hands that like drop down and grab you,
Ah,
like big hand phobia. But like,
yeah.
it balanced so many tones, like the adventure, the whimsy, this real melancholy sort of tone that sort of permeates everything. It's not a grand adventure where there's a happy ending, everyone gets what they want. Like, there's a cost. The time period, like, you jump between the two time periods, that sets such a clear stakes of what will happen. Like, this is how things are going to go bad. This is the cost of what happens if you don't save the world. But even when you do beat the game, like, you don't. It's not a happy ending. There is so much sort of bittersweet uh, tone to that, how that ends, basically.
Yeah, this one is epic, truly epic. And if people are looking for a newer way to play it, I'm sure you can play it on those Nintendo Switch Online, like I mentioned. But they also did a re-release on the Nintendo 3DS.
Yes, I
So
played
you may
that.
be able to snag yourself a cartridge of that slightly souped up version as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, a really good one.
Very cool. So I guess I don't need to talk about my number 3, so you can go straight into yours.
All right, another one. Okay. Well, I'm going to return the favor shortly. Okay, let's talk about my number 3 game, I guess it is. So this game is quite unlike the others. It's officially from 2024, but I started playing it a lot earlier on PC in Steam Early Access. You might be able to guess what this game is. It's definitely not on your list, but it's high on mine. It's called Satisfactory.
Right.
By Coffee Stain Studios, I believe, or publishing anyway. This game is really quite cool. It's the only game of this genre. I guess, what is this genre anyways? The factory making genre?
Efficiency.
It's obviously very inspired by Factorio, the 2D factory designing game. And there's other, factory style automation games that came before that
I
as
still
well.
can't tell those two games apart, by the way. You've mentioned it so many times, and I can never remember which one it is that you've played.
It's very easy to tell if you look at screenshots. Satisfactory itself also, I'm not a big Factorio fan. I was never able to get into it just because just the design aesthetic is totally different. The Satisfactory phone is fully 3D. It's fully 3D. It takes place in a fixed 3D world, so the world is handcrafted. It's not procedurally generated. So like, you'll get to know that world. Even though it has changed slightly over the various versions of the releases, it's obviously had its 1.0 release fairly recently. But between all the early access versions, just all the new mechanical improvements they would add were so substantial. Like, once they added like fluid dynamics. You think that sounds super dull, but fluid dynamics totally change things. This is a game where you might. I've heard your complaints before, or not really your complaints, but your reasons why it doesn't appeal to you, is that you say, well, it doesn't really have any goals. And you're totally wrong, by the way, because it does have very, very clearly spelled out goals. You have these sort of tech tiers. And the premise of Satisfactory, by the way, is that you are a like sole engineer, airdropped onto a lush, untouched planet, and by this like sort of faceless corporation. I think it's called iFixit or Fixit Corporation, and you have to, with just the very few tools, have to conquer the entire planet basically, and again extract all of its resources and build massive, massive emplacements and factories. That's the name. But you set up this like space elevator, and then every tier you have to fulfill these very specific goals. And once you ship a certain number of output, then you press a button, you launch that package into space, and then it unlocks the new tier. So it has very explicit goals that you have to meet. But how you get to those goals is up to you. You decide what's optimal, you decide what's satisfactory, you decide what's efficient, and you decide also what's fun. Beyond the fact that there's this efficiency puzzle of you just delivering this amount of product, you decide how aesthetically pleasing the factory will be. You decide whether it'll be neat and tidy and elegant, or it'll be this spaghetti mess of tubes and pipes and conveyor belts. And it supports all those personality types and everything in between. And it is a great game for, I don't know if it's a great game for, what is it? Just obsessive types, but you'll really, if you are creative and you like to express yourself, then it's a really fantastic, tableau for you to try things out, because you can you can really quite drastically control 3D space. If you've ever been interested in architecture, for instance, you can build these massive structures. You can really take over the surface of the planet, and you can set up like car racing tracks if you want to, with these little buggies and vehicles that you generate, and you can zip along the power lines with this like auto propelled zip line tool. You can make these little platforming runs. There's so many ways you can entertain yourself while trying to achieve those goals. So if you just ever wanted to explore a world and sort of take it over by your own two hands, you absolutely can do that. And better yet, you can do it co-op with a few of your friends too.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely be into this more with co-op, where you can set sort of collective goals and have someone dictating, someone setting the pace of what you're trying to do. I'm not very good at setting those goals myself. I mean, even Minecraft, I think I can appreciate Minecraft, but it feels like there you have a little more creativity or framework to what you're trying to achieve. Whereas this sometimes feels like output for the sake of output. A little like, isn't this what Cookie Clicker warned us against, basically? But I can definitely see the appeal. If
Yeah,
you got
cookie
the right
clicker,
mind for it.
you don't earn the output, right?
Mm,
You are manually building the things that get you to higher and greater heights, essentially, in
mm,
this. And yes, you automate things away, but that adds to the level of achievement. You feel
mm.
that you really have, people don't go into games because they want to chip away at a block of stone. We've just exceeded beyond that as a civilization. So there's thankfully a very small period of time where you have to do that. But once you're seeking out new resources, maybe you'll just have to pick away at a new different type of ore before you can create a new optimal, um, system to generate those in an efficient way. Yeah, I really like it.
Very cool. Okay. Well, my number two, and the newest game on the list, at least from today's top 10, is Outer Wilds. So it came out in 2019, and definitely a factor, I think, in my enjoyment of this, or at least how memorable it was for me, is it came out right as my daughter was born, basically I was playing this on either side of that, so my mind was in a funky space, shall we say, at the time. So really imprinted. But it is a fascinating game in terms of exploration and like just sense of space, literally space. Because I mean, this is a time loop game, another genre that I really don't generally like, and this is the exception to the rule because that time loop there is contextualized. I mean, I generally don't like time limits in game full stop because so often it's basically just there for to limit a high score, right? Or it's there for some arbitrary quantitative state. But here, it's part of the story. It's built in. It's engage. It's dictating how you're able to explore this world, and it's all set together like this clockwork mechanism. There's these, I think it's like 8 or so planets in this solar system that you're exploring. They're interacting with each other, and something will happen at a certain point of this sort of time loop. You have to be there at the right time to experience it, or you miss out. And you're piecing this together, almost like an archaeological excavation, and sort of. I mean, obviously, the blueprints again. There's been a lot of talk about the Metroid Brainias, and sort of the only thing to unlock is knowledge. And I think, if I can recall correctly, you could basically solve this game from the get go as long as you know what to do. But you've got to find that knowledge and piece it together and visit all the far corners of the galaxy, and just an incredible atmosphere. Again, the music I listen to all the time. It's sort of this cozy banjo music, but does also just have this sort of melancholy of the loneliness of space. But they also utilize that in the story by the end in this really transcendental way that has stuck with me. And I need to revisit it. I've still not played the DLC. I've been saving it. I'm waiting till it's been long enough that I can just replay the whole thing, basically, because it really is a special game. And I mean, I love a place to explore, and exploring for the sake of rather than just to check things off on a list, right? And this is a great one of those.
Yeah, this is Outer Wilds, right? Not Outer Worlds.
Did I say that right?
No,
Oh,
I think you said it right. I just
okay.
wanted to be clear
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
because
Okay.
those two games came out at the same time, and they're very quite different from each
Yes.
other
Yeah.
than taking place in space. I haven't played Outer Wilds. I'm terribly embarrassed by it because it sounds like a game that's right up my alley. You mentioned, Blueprints. Just I like to think of those games as explorer ups. That's my personal genre that I've coined because exploring. You're right, absolutely. It's totally fun, and unlocking that knowledge is totally fun as well. Speaking of time loop games were really a genre that was started quite early with a spin-off of Ocarina of Time called Majora's Mask.
Mm-hmm. And number 2, is it?
No, it's
No?
not.
Oh, okay.
Thought I'd mention it
Okay, yeah,
offhand.
right. I saw an article today talking about is Majora's Mask a roguelike? Like, I can't go on this journey with you, buddy. I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, too many circular arguments on the internet. Anyways, my number 2 game, I can't talk about it because we've already talked about it. My number 2 game
of course.
is 2012's Borderlands 2.
That high, huh?
Yeah, I adore that game to heck. If I think about games that I've spent quality time with over and over again because I played the campaign through with all the main characters, and tried to unlock more and more DLC content, the DLC story content, tried to get new epic equipment. That game is a lot of value for however much money you spend on it, especially now when it must be so cheap. Yeah, Borderlands 2, fantastic. My number 2.
Excellent. Well, if you couldn't tell from my excitement talking about this earlier, you've probably heard me talk about it on previous episodes. My number 1 is Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. And yeah, this really is a special game. We've already discussed it in detail, but a couple of other points that I hadn't mentioned is like the transit system. It's so rare to be excited about a transit system in a game, especially when like fast travel is so like innocuous these days. But you had to memorize like, okay, I want to get to Sadrith Mora, so I have to get the boat to Ebonheart, and from there I get a silk thread to Vivek, and from there I can get through to the Mage's Guild and teleport up to there. And like I can visualize the sort of the subway map of all the lines connecting all of those travel routes, and it really does immerse you in like interacting with that world and learning it. And also like the game, that series and games broadly have become so obsessed with everything having to be voiced, and I think that was like another factor in which everything was sanded down. I mean, we still have like CRPGs like Disco Elysium. I mean, I guess that's all voiced as well now, but like Morrowind was just before that period where they were still delivering you walls of text, and you could really delve into the world and the setting and get all this history, and just so much more depth in every regard than those following up games. And I've not explored Oblivion in a long time. I think it's a bit of an uncanny valley in terms of modernized game features these days. But yeah, Morrowind is where it's at.
Yeah, Morrowind is great. Obviously, we've talked about it already. Sorry to steal your thunder, by the way, talking about it so
I'm
early.
surprised. I didn't think it would be on your list at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I knew I had to have an Elder Scrolls on my list, and in terms of quality time, like I said, I did spend a ton of time on that with a bunch of different character classes. I actually spent about an hour or two playing the intro to Oblivion just recently after the re-release, the remaster came out, and I was reminded that that game has some surprisingly really quite cool mechanisms, like the skill upgrade, where you skill up because you do the thing more. You
Yeah,
sneak more, you jump more, you get attacked in heavy armor, you upgrade more that way. Just the way that some of the character classes are built out. If it did some of those things that they did in Skyrim, it's because Oblivion was first. It really established a lot of those things. So I think there's a lot of good qualities to Oblivion. My big complaints about that game is that the Oblivion sequences themselves are super dull, and there's a lot of asset reuse, and it just seems like a really small world too.
Well, even that's the level scaling and things like that, where
Yeah,
everything in these later games, everything is always constantly at your level, so you can go wherever you want and just it'll meet your level of experience. But like, I love going to a cave like, oh, I am not ready for this, and
yeah,
just I've got to get out of there. I'll come back when I'm powered, and then you feel empowered when you finally come back with that big sword and beat those bandits up, or that mud crab that killed you when you first left Satan.
yeah. RPGs should have friction. That's the whole point. That's
Exactly.
what
Yeah.
makes you feel powerful when you do level up.
Yeah. And don't get me started on the huge mod scene. I spent so many hours on this. I mean, a large part of this, obviously, I was 14, with way too much time, but I spent hundreds of hours exploring mods and all kinds of things in that game.
Yeah, I think I played on Xbox original, so I didn't really get into mods at all.
Mm,
But I
mm.
guess I could go back and try it out and see how I felt about that early game. Um,
I should just, before you move on, I streamed that game for quite a few episodes when I was streaming. I don't know if it's on this channel
I
or
think it is on this channel, on this
yeah.
YouTube
So
channel.
so
Yeah,
go check that out and getting experience, getting the intro to how that game plays.
very cool. We're digging back into our video back catalog. Nice. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my number one, and it's also a CRPG.
Hmm.
I said that there would only be one more after this. It's from 2010, and it's from the very same publisher as Morrowind. It's from Bethesda Softworks. It is 2010's Fallout
Oh, of
New
course.
Vegas.
Oh, okay.
New Vegas, which of course was a game, it's sort of a spin-off. It's like in the Fallout
Hmm.
3 engine. And in a lot of ways, it didn't do much to tweak that. But what's interesting about this game is the world, for one, the story for two, the sense of place, the even the color palette is quite different from it's this more warmer kind of dusty orange and brown compared to the kind of like sickly green of the computer screen of Fallout 3, which lent it a entirely different tone. And this is from legendary game developer Obsidian, who would come out with some CRPGs that we played very recently, like Pentiment, which we covered
Mm-hmm.
in a recent episode. And they most recently came out with the CRPG Avowed, which we haven't had a chance to talk about at length yet. But New Vegas was them really trying out something new in a 3D space. I think this might have been one of their earlier 3D RPGs because they were formed of older computer RPG studio alumni from places like Black Isle. So these are people that work on the original Fallout game, ironically, who were called back to work on a spin-off game. So they just banged it out. I think they had like a really short amount of time to put this game out too, something like 8 or 9 months,
Yeah.
which is incredible to think of when you look at that world. Um, it's not a perfect game, but
Mm.
boy, does it make you think and remember. It has so many memorable characters, so many memorable um, just scenes, settings, ethical choices. You even have to make so many amazing, mind blowing set pieces. I mean, you're standing on top of the Hoover Dam. You're walking through the Vegas Strip, which is actually not that terribly impressive now that you look back on it, because it was chopped up into these little tiny slices to be able to be run on an Xbox 360 or whatever it ran on back in the day. Whoa, these memory limits. That's actually something I'm curious about the Oblivion remake. Is did they make all sectors of the Imperial City actually connected,
Oh, good
or
point.
are there
Yeah.
load times in between? I wonder, because nowadays that would be no problem to
There's
run,
gates you
right?
can't levitate over.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, Fallout. I played a bit of New Vegas, close to when it first came out, and I like the writing is definitely one of the strongest across all of those Bethesda games in terms of you actually having to role play and
Yes.
it forcing you to make choices and lock off paths to like you having to actually use your skills and attributes. So like skill checks largely that ways that other games have always some of the other like Bethesda Prime games have always they want to feel like you have any choice available anytime. You're never locked off from things, right? And I mentioned even Morrowind. If you join the Fighters Guild, the Thieves Guild is going to hate you. You're going to block off some paths in that game. But and similarly, Fallout New Vegas played with some similar things there.
Yeah, factions. Like factions were a
Mm.
big part of this game, and that's quite popular nowadays with CRPGs that have come out later. But I feel like that game really kind of put its foot in the ground, at least in this newer generation of computer RPGs, and said that, this is the kind of leg that we're going to stand on, is making faction play a really crucial part of your gameplay choices, some ethical choices you make when dealing with things like Caesar or Mr. House. Great, like, interesting voice actors. Like they got, like, I think they got Dave Foley to play the computer bot or
Oh,
whatever.
the Yes Man, I think it was.
Yes,
Yeah.
man.
Mm.
And I think Rene Aubergenois was Mr. House himself, actually,
Mm.
if
Mm.
I'm not mistaken. So some cool choices there. Um, wow, what can I say? Like, you just like feel like you're in a place. And also, this was the first time in the newer generation you went back to the West Coast. I think that some of the early Fallouts, if I'm not mistaken, Fallout 1 was also set in the New California Republic. So like the NCR was like just not a thing in Fallout 3,
Mm.
right? Just because it was on the clear on the other side of the continent. But this one really kind of took you back to its roots. So there was even some legacy connections there as well. So just to me, I think this is like the sort of the pinnacle of that generation of Bethesda RPGs. For me, people know I like sci-fi more, and this game really is an evocative, fun world where you can do so much and so many things.
I've been meaning to get back to revisit this because it didn't really hit me that hard at the time, and for me the big downside was just it didn't have that sense of exploration when you're between there's these big set pieces and towns. When you're wandering out in the middle of nowhere, there's not really much out there to find. I found it just felt very empty and not fun to explore. But when you are engaged, when you hit those story beats, those are real highlights. And for me, the strong point was actually one of the DLCs called Old World Blues, which was this standalone area, but it was like a small sort of encapsulation of a lot of the the highs of Fallout, and it had a key storyline. It had some side areas to explore, but it was all like it was very much Venture Brothers, and I want to say it had some of the same voice actors, and it was that old sort of wacky scientist, mad science sort of tropes that it was playing with, brains in jars and things like that. That one was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like that game because it's not like a mainline. It's sort of like the Fallout Reach. Sort of the Halo Reach of Fallout, right? Because it's not a mainline Fallout game. You're not a vault dweller, actually. You're a very different sort of character, and it was allowed to do different things with its DLC and just its whole writing and approach and
Didn't
delivery.
railroad you in that same way, yeah.
Yeah, they were allowed to do something unique that Obsidian flavor. So yeah, and just quite honestly, just means a lot to me personally. I really enjoyed playing that at the time.
I mean, it was just recently I rewatched the H Bomber guy video. It's like 3 hours about why New Vegas is so great. So just go watch that.
Can't say I've had the opportunity. I make my own memories here, and this one is really high up there. Yeah, but I've really enjoyed this process. It makes me think about, my personal game history. I didn't put a lot of time into coming up with these lists, but these choices feel good in retrospect. And who knows? I'm sure we won't be doing this again next year. But new games come in slowly but surely. It gives context to the older choices in your list as well. It's quite a fun process.
Yes, yeah. So there weren't that many new games on my list. I've largely tried to take into account sort of how games felt, at least when they came out. Nostalgia is going to play a large part into that, but like, no, but most of these games came out like in my teens and 20s. To be honest, like when games were new, a lot of games are coming out now where they don't feel terribly new and exciting. There are exceptions, obviously, but yeah, it's. I mean, you can never recapture some of those feelings of your first Zelda game or your first FPS or. But a lot of fun memories there, and more crossover than I thought.
Yeah, how many duplicates do we have this time
We
around?
had Morrowind, we
Morrowind,
had Borderlands,
Borderlands 2,
Ocarina of Time. So
Ocarina of Time.
we had three hard crossovers, and then Mario we just missed each other, and then
Halo 1, Halo 1 and
we
Halo
just
2.
missed each other too. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty close.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's about right, in 25 games.
I guess I was expecting more JRPGs and visual novels on your list.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a couple. I feel like I tried to have a fairly representative genre blend. I mean, I didn't have any sports games because I don't play those, but I even had a shoot 'em up. Gosh darn it, tried to represent. All right.
True
well,
omnigamer there.
Yes, we've covered a lot. So, we're starting next episode. We go back to our regularly scheduled format.
Yes, yeah, a lot of games to talk about that we've been playing in the last month. I've got more time for playing games right now as being unemployed, so even more to talk about. And hey, I don't know I wonder what's happened in the world of games. What could have gone wrong? Like surely everything's been fine.
Yeah, we're gonna have some stuff to talk about for sure. All right, I look forward to that. I look forward to continuing covering games with you. Congratulations again, 104 episodes in the bag. Is that it?
This is 103. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, thank you, Mark, and thanks everyone for listening, for joining the club. If you have any questions or comments on today's games, you can contact us at omnigamersclub@gmail.com or at our website, omnigamers.club.
Yeah, go check us out on YouTube if you haven't there. Subscribe and comment. Also go subscribe to us on the podcatcher of your choosing. If you're not a subscriber, tell a friend. That really means a lot to us. I mean, we don't have sponsorship. This is free podcast.
No ads. Yep.
For love. So really just all the feedback and appreciation is all the energy we need to keep this thing going. So I really appreciate you for listening to us indulge for full 4 episodes on this. It was a lot of fun and love to hear about your top 50 games.
Yeah. Let us know how your lists compare. And thank you again. And in the meantime, enjoy a balanced diet of games.
Enjoy. It's a big meal.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.